Hello, LogFX here, and this is probably a story about Amanda's discovery. Like, bro, I have seen this book in school this year, and I really perceived the stuff to take it home provided to me, which I'll read it anyway. So, enjoy this book. Armando's Discovery, written by Stuart Scammell and illustrated by Faye Medland. I was awoken by the usual shouts of Roman army officers and the sounds of soldiers marching, their footprints always in time. My life had always been filled with shouts and loud noises. My father is a centurion in the Roman army, and we have lived in so many places in the Roman Empire. My parents named me Armando, which is an Italian name meaning strong. I love some of the places where we have lived and hated some of the others. We always have to be careful because in every place that we have lived, we have been seen as the enemy. For the past 8 months, we have lived in Jerusalem, in Israel. My dad is in charge of well over 100 soldiers. My mother likes being here, and we have a large house with servants. I like sneaking out of the house dressed like the local children. The city's always bustling, and there's so much going on. Oh, interesting. A few days ago, I was out in the city, watching the busy market. I love watching the people arguing over prices and seeing all the things that have been brought from the farms to the markets to sell. All of a sudden, there was some shouting that seemed to be coming from over by the wall. I wasn't sure what was happening, but my first thought was that my dad might be called. I wondered if he would be marching down with a group of soldiers to sort things out. I ran towards the gate, and I saw something that was amazing. A fully grown man was riding on the foal of a donkey. I was amazed that the young donkey was able to carry him. As I stood there, people were getting excited. One man shouted, "It's happening! It's finally happening!" I wondered what he meant. "What is?" I asked. The man turned to me and smiled excitedly. Yes, excitedly. Zaharia... What's the name? I don't know what's the name. Zechariah's 500-year-old prophecy said that our king would come riding on the foal of a donkey. Look, it's happening! As I looked, I thought something special is happening. People started ripping palm branches from the trees and waving them or scattering them on the floor in front of the donkey. When this started, I just knew the soldiers would be along soon. The people started shouting, "Hosanna! Hosanna!" The shouting got louder and louder, hardly able to hear myself speak. I asked the man what they were shouting. He smiled again. "They are shouting to the king to save us." "From who?" I inquired. "The Romans, of course. We want Jerusalem back," son replied. The smile disappearing from his face. Being the son of a Roman centurion, I thought it best to say nothing. I watched for a few more minutes. Then a band of soldiers could be heard approaching, and as I looked, my dad was leading them to the front of the crowd. There they stood. They did nothing. They just let the crowd know that they were there. That evening, Dad was late home. We had our meal really late. While we were eating, Dad told us about his day. He recalled the events and made the comment, "It is amazing who you see in the city." I instantly know that I had been seen, but I didn't say anything. He didn't either. He always encouraged me to be adventurous and brave. It was his way of saying, "Be careful." Dad told us that the person on the donkey was Jesus. He met him before. People said that he did miracles and that he fed people and did so much good. My dad didn't believe that someone as good as him would get an army together or cause harm. That night, I went to bed thinking about what I had seen and heard. I was a little worried that my dad would be fighting against the people of Jerusalem. The more I thought about it, the more certain I became that something very different would happen. I stayed at home for the for the next few days, but wondered what was happening with Jesus and what the crowd were doing or thinking. Soon, my curiosity got the better of me. We always had soldiers guarding our house. So I went out into the courtyard and asked them what had been going on. One of the soldiers told me how they had been called to a garden where men had been seen gathering with flaming torches, swords and sticks. They had stood a distance away, watching as they did. They had seen one of Jesus' followers called Judas leading the men to Jesus. Judas pointed him out, and they led him away. The soldier said there was a commotion as one of Jesus' other followers, called Peter, pulled out a very short sword and began to fight. The high priest's servant was injured, and they were almost sent to break it all up. Just before the command was given, Jesus stopped. Then something utterly astounding happened. Jesus healed the high priest's servant. When I heard about that, I was even more convinced that Jesus meant no harm and had only come to do good. I wondered what it could be. The next day, when my dad came home for his food, he seemed upset and annoyed. I heard him saying to my mother, "It's just not right. He's a good man. They should be learning from him, not arresting him." I pretended to be doing something else. I had toy soldiers carved out of store and made out I was playing with them, but the reality was I was listening to my parents to find out more. They treated him so badly. "It just isn't right," Dad continued. "You've always had good things to say about Jesus. Why do they treat him so badly?" asked Mum. Dad went on to say how people were jealous of Jesus and he was worried that they would crucify him. He really hoped not to be put in charge of the crucifixion. Soldiers came hammering on the door of the house that night. I crept to the top of the stairs to listen. Something was happening. You could feel it. The atmosphere was tense. "Plate, the governor wants you to be ready. Jesus has been sentenced and he is going to be crucified as the top center around here. You have been put in charge," announced one of the soldiers. My father bowed his head, looking at the ground. My mother let out a small cry. Dad got dressed and within a few minutes he was gone. I didn't sleep at all for the rest of the night. In the morning, all I could think about was how kind Jesus was and how he helped people, making their lives better. Why were people so cruel to him, and what would happen? I picked out my breakfast and Mum was very quiet. I knew she was worrying about Dad and what was happening with Jesus. I went up to my room. I looked out of the window and I could see in the distance a hill called Calvary. At about 8:30 in the morning, I could make out some men carrying crosses up the hill. I just knew one of them was Jesus. I was feeling really sad. It was all so wrong. At midday, just as the sun was at its strongest, something amazing happened. There was suddenly a thick darkness. I didn't really know what it meant, but I knew it was something to do with Jesus. That night, when my father came here, he was pale and shaking a little. I could hear him talking to my mother, and my mother gave him a great big hug. I heard him say, "Jesus isn't good and kind man after what I have seen today. He is truly the Son of God." Wow, I thought he knew. He was special, but this just can't be the end. I went outside to see the soldiers. They were being sent to a garden to guard where Jesus was buried. They were being sent because some people were saying that he had said he would rise again. Over the next few days, all I could do was think about Jesus, the kind teacher and miracle worker. He had to be the Son of God. Only God can do miracles. There was no other explanation. Early in the morning, I had a feeling that I had to find out for myself. I wrapped my coat around me because it was cold and made my way to the garden. What I saw astonished me. The garden tom was opened and the soldiers were lying on the floor as if they had fainted. As I looked, some women were special for Jesus. There was an angel shining brightly. The ladies looked shocked to see him. The angel spoke and told them not to be afraid and that Jesus was not there. He had risen, yeah. This was the most wonderful news ever. I rushed back home. I didn't feel cold or sad anymore because Jesus was alive. I still wasn't sure what to make of it all. A few weeks later, I was in the city of Jerusalem. At one of my adventures, I saw a man standing. I recognized him as one of Jesus' disciples. Jesus' disciple. Okay. He stood up to speak. He said, "We know that Jesus Christ is God's Son because of the miracles he did. He was crucified for all the wrong we had done. Now God raised him up. We need to be sorry for our wrong and believe in him." I just nodded. He was perfect, he loved us and died for us. What a wonderful man the Son of God is. I went back home feeling much better. Jesus had died, but now he is alive and we can be forgiven through him. See, if you can spot 5 differences between these. Okay, I think that's the end of it. Okay, you know what? Done reading it. I think that's the end of the story. Okay. And that is the story of Armando's discovery. Yeah, Armando's discovery. I hope you guys like this video. And if you are new here, click like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And I'll see you later. Peace out.